All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Oh, yeah, everybody. Feel it. Do you feel the groove? What happened to that? Feel the groove. They used to say that, like groove and groovy and all that all went away, huh? Yeah. Seemed like it was going to be here forever. But,
Morning.
Yeah, morning. Anyway, morning. Kim, how are you?
Kim, how are you?
Kim is in charge today. You would argue some that she's in charge every day, actually, but technically she is. She's in the captain's chair. That's right. Close the market.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah, Albert, you'll have to deal with. By the way, speaking of the Marky Mouth thing, it was is it Trevor in Concord who sends me the he sent me a new thing for that. It was the
Did you really just do that?
No, it was let me just see where is it? It's is it
Close the Marky Mouth.
Yeah, it was the
Close the Marky Mouth.
Yeah, like a cleaner version of it. I don't know. Apparently it was not clean enough for him before, but it's like
Close the Marky Mouth.
Yeah, and there are people suggesting that we get merch with that phrase on it. So I don't know. Congratulations, you backed into something hot.
I suppose so.
Yeah. Getmarkmerch.com is where you get all the merch behind me and in front of me and alongside me. And we don't really, it's just a fun thing. We don't really make money on the merch per se, but we enjoy all the pictures and stuff and sharing pictures with the merch and all that. So it's a fun thing, you know.
There is no Marky Mouth merch yet, though.
No, there is no Marky Mouth merch. The merch people are always working, but they have nothing yet. They like to see that something's really getting hot before they jump on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Smash the like button like a boss throughout the show today and share it on Facebook, etc. That's the way to grow the audience, which we're trying to do. And without the audience and without the community of supporters that we have, we just simply wouldn't be able to survive. So it's been honestly a learning experience for us. Some of the things have been good coming over here. And I think it's indisputable that the good is you watching, contributing. I'm talking about contributing just in the chat. I mean, just being part of things, if you want to think of it that way. Obviously, the people who contribute financially are invaluable to us. I just don't know what we do without them. So that's important too. But this community that has formed around this show is really something special. So speaking of communities, I have
The Mark Thompson Show.
I don't think you're going to love this, particularly you and your beautiful little neighborhood there.
Uh-oh.
Kim. But supersized housing projects are planned for the Bay Area's wealthiest cities.
What do you mean by supersized?
Well,
let
me put my credibility glasses on to fill you in on some of the details. Like an 8-story condo building.
Oh, no.
Above Los Altos Hills. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I think
hundreds
that's
of
be
apartment buildings along the sprawling single-family subdivisions of Brentwood. 150 homes perched high on a bucolic hillside in rural Marin County.
Oh, no.
Bucolic is a ding word, by the way. Could it happen? Yes. There is a growing number of jumbo housing projects that developers are looking into in the Bay Area's most exclusive neighborhoods. And obviously, longtime residents like Kim, local officials, they may not be able to stop it.
Uh-oh.
There is a provision in state housing law that's meant as a penalty for cities that fail to do their part to alleviate the housing crisis in California. Developers have begun invoking this rule. It's called the builder's remedy, in hopes of pushing through projects that are much bigger than local zoning restrictions will allow. In a way, you can think of it as, we drop a bunch of these special projects in these neighborhoods, and then these other bigger projects that we want, they get approved. So far this year, and I'll remind you, it's only June, July-ish. So far this year, at least 34 projects totaling more than 6,400 units have been proposed across 11 local cities and counties. And if you look at documents filed throughout the Bay Area, many of the proposals target affluent areas that have long resisted large housing projects. Affluent is a ding word. When the state passed this builder's remedy rule 3 decades ago, it was thought to be, the threat to spur cities to follow through on housing responsibilities. But this Southern California developer invoked it last year, and no one had even heard of it. I mean, so much time had passed since it had been originally introduced.
If it's payback for not doing this whole affordable housing next to the $1 million mansions kind of situation, you know who's first is Atherton. Atherton.
That's right.
If it's retribution, Atherton is who they're after, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, cities and counties where developers have proposed builder's remedy, as it's called, projects that are part of builder's remedy include San Jose, 15 projects there, Mountain View, 5, Palo Alto, 3, Los Altos Hills, 3, Brentwood, 2, Menlo Park, San Mateo, Pleasanton, Sonoma, Fairfax, and Marin County.
Oh.
Wow.
That ought to go over well.
Yeah. Those communities really take to this kind of thing so easily. Many of the proposals call for high and mid-rise projects along main thoroughfares and commercial centers in Palo Alto, Mountain View, and neighborhoods across San Jose, adding dozens of units to already planned developments there, including in downtown San Jose and San Mateo. In Los Altos Hills, though, they lay out new plans for multifamily housing. This is in almost exclusively single-family housing neighborhoods. One of the main reasons that proposals target wealthy cities is that developers can charge higher rents and sale prices,
of course,
to offer the reduced revenue from the portion of the affordable units that they're required to include in their projects. Right.
We were just talking yesterday about Santa Clara County, Santa Cruz County, San Mateo County having among the highest rents in the state.
Yeah. Local officials are looking into legal strategies to stop this, of course. I mean, these will be controversial proposals, to say the least. And I think you're going to hear way more about this. Here's a Los Altos Hills resident who's 89 years old, okay? Lived in Los Altos Hills for a long time, for 40 years, actually. Former editor of the town's quarterly newsletter. Remember when the towns had quarterly newsletters?
That was nice.
Back then.
Yes.
His name is Duffy Price. He's 89. He says, I think it's wrong. Totally wrong. He's worried that adding more residents to the oak-dotted hills would hinder evacuations during a wildfire.
It's traffic-y already.
Yeah. Let us preserve what is the heritage and the natural beauty of Los Altos Hills. Well, this is the problem in California. Not enough housing and a lot of development.
Yeah.
So this is going to be tied up in the court. But in Southern California, Santa Monica recently struck a deal with the developer to allow 10 scaled-down builder's remedy proposals rather than risk going to court over the high-rise projects. Housing advocates say that could embolden more developers to use this rule to gain leverage in getting projects approved. In Marin, this Michigan-based real estate private equity firm has threatened to use this provision to develop 150 homes in Lucas Valley.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a no-go right there.
They say, okay, and this is what they do. They say, okay, well then you must then approve the 39 home application that has been denied. You denied that, so we're going to use this provision to develop 150 homes in Lucas Valley if you don't okay the other application that we want, the building application.
And that's a bummer because that's all, I mean, there are homes out there. Of course, George Lucas has the ranch out there, but that's rolling hills. And it's also, I would argue, high fire danger area.
Right.
And there's not a very big roadway. It's like a two-laner, and it's not where you want to put high density housing.
I think those are all really great points. It just that they run up against this thing, builder's remedy. You're going to hear a lot about it. Builder's remedy. This is what it is. And they're going to spread it around.
Sounds like
A-
builders hijacking is what it sounds like.
In a sense, you may be right. So
I
there you
mean,
have it.
check out this picture that I found for you. This is Lucas Valley. Again, mostly green rolling hills dotted with oak.
No, it's
That's where
gorgeous.
that's what you want to do. You want to put high density housing there?
They're saying we don't want to do it, the developer's saying, but if you don't give me the original 39 home application approval,
Mm.
then we will, because that dropping the 150 homes in Lucas Valley will allow us the 39 homes. There'll be no way that you'll have legal high ground to deny it. It's a, well, it's just that. It's a builder's remedy. It's a remedy for developers.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, you know, these are tough times in California because, as you say, you have natural threats like fire,
Yeah.
and then you have the specter of trying to find affordable housing. Many cannot, you know. I mean, you're lucky. You got into Petaluma a while ago, right?
Yeah.
And I just think that, you know, now it's hard. But these sleepier residential neighborhoods may be changing. So again,
This is Lucas Valley Road. 2 lanes, one in, one out.
scary. Scary in the event of a fire, for sure. But hey, 101 drives like a single lane road a lot of the time. The development, I mean, you know, Santa
Yeah.
Rosa is now this huge place. It wasn't
Yeah.
35, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's true in the case of all the towns between Santa Rosa and the city. So, builder's remedy. Watch for it. It's coming. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What could this be? Let's look. I'm so excited. It's the Mark Thompson Show.
Is CinemaScope.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
It is the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister. I have Albert here today. Hey, Albert. You must have microphone problems again. I don't know. I can't hear you. Well, let me tell you what's coming up because we've got John Rothmann. It is John Rothmann Day. Woo! So we'll welcome him in just a moment. Also, Mark will be back to talk to actor John Schuck today. So that's exciting. That happens in the 11 o'clock hour. Going to do a little That's Rich if there's time as well. But first, I wanted to go to the economy because I was reading this story last night about Bidenomics. Have you heard about it? Well, let me tell you a little bit about Bidenomics and what it means, because the White House is trying to sell this to us, and let's figure out if you're into it. This is a kind of a catchphrase for the upcoming election. So the president is saying, his economic advisors are saying the worst of this whole inflation thing, that's over. And they are confident that the economy is doing well, that we're averting a recession. And that's great that they think that, but I guess most Americans are still really worried about the economy, and not everyone agrees. So, because they're looking for this way to get around the perception that the economy is still iffy and possibly failing, they've come up with this term, Bidenomics. Here's the quote. Bidenomics is rooted in the simple idea that we need to grow the economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. This is from two of the president's senior advisors. They are trying to tout Bidenomics. It looks like more of a branding exercise than it really does anything else. But I think we're going to hear a lot about it as we come into this 2024 election season. I'm going to talk to John Rothmann about that in a little while. But speaking of the economy, there's a lot of tech closures going on. So if the economy is really rebounding, why are we seeing all these tech companies laying off people still and closing their doors? One of the tech companies closing is called Stitcher. You may have heard of it. It's a long-term kind of it's a podcast platform that was founded in San Francisco. SiriusXM owns it. It's called Stitcher, and it's closing its doors. That's it. They've been open since 2007. And they're closing down its app and web listening platforms at the end of August.
What?
Yeah, Stitcher's over. Great time to be in the podcast business, right? Woohoo! Lucky us.
That feels very radio adjacent, so I feel bad because
I know.
We could definitely sympathize with those who are in I think it's just just like radio. It's funny because it's oversaturated. There's like too many options, and you don't know who to listen to. So.
Well, and that's what they're calling it. They're saying it is consolidation, oversaturation, and that's it. So they are closing down Stitcher. They would like to get customers over to the Stitcher flagship subscription service, the Stitcher's premium subscriptions. We'll see if that works. I don't know. I feel bad for anybody who's trying to make a go in this way and finds themselves not able to do so. But not the only Bay Area-based company finding themselves in some financial trouble. There's another company called New Relic. They're a software firm, 200 employees, more than 200 employees they're laying off. So they say they're just struggling to achieve profitability. It's a web analytics and software firm, and it's part of a larger restructuring. It's the company's third layoff round in 3 years, so more than 200 people out. 155 of them in the United States will lose their jobs, 57 abroad. That's it. And again, not the only company. But wait, there's more. There's a biotech company in Foster City that may cut some jobs.
That's not fake. That's real.
Yeah, sadly. It's called Illumina. And they are probably going to cut jobs at their Foster City campus, at their San Diego campus as well. They are known, Illumina, for developing and manufacturing equipment used in DNA sequencing. You would think that they're pretty safe. I mean, I would kind of think that's a niche market. But yeah, they are moving forward on layoffs to realign operating expenses. And so they're cutting their real estate footprint by leaving 13 campuses. They're evaluating their options in Foster City, and they're looking to cut annual expenses by $100 million. So between their real estate holdings and their employees, that's it. They're speaking of financial trouble, this company bought, I don't know if you've driven past it, this kind of Russian temple in San Francisco. Maybe we can show a picture, Albert, but the church had closed, and this company was purchased by a venture firm, GVA Capital, venture capital firm. They wanted to turn this church into a tech space called the Startup Temple. $7 million used to purchase this property. $5 million of it came from a Russian oligarch with ties to Vladimir Putin. That, according to the San Francisco
Receive the royal scepter.
I don't think they're giving you the royal scepter at the tech temple. Suleiman Karimov was the Russian oligarch's name. But now the property is back on the market for the same price, about $7 million. San Francisco Business Times saying they had hoped at one point to convert this, what had hoped to be a tech temple, into a homeless shelter. But the purchase to turn it into a tech area kind of put a stop to those plans. So now it's back on the market again. The whole tech temple plan, no, not so much. And speaking of kind of cool realty, but again, another institution, longtime San Francisco institution, struggling, the San Francisco Art Institute. And they have listed their campus for sale after a bankruptcy. I don't know if we can show a picture here, Albert. This is a beautiful building in San Francisco. It seems like almost everywhere you look, the Art Institute of San Francisco owns some glorious real estate in the city. Well, they went into foreclosure, the San Francisco Art Institute campus, earlier this year. Apparently, they had stopped taking any new students in 2020. And now we know the University of San Francisco was going to acquire the school. That deal never came to fruition. So it filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy after it graduated its final class of students. And now they say it's their most prized asset. This building is going up for sale. So that's it. They owe $450,000 in unpaid rent at the main campus, $750,000 in unpaid rent at the Fort Mason campus. This one is in Russian Hill. It's got 2 buildings that are tied together and 93,000 square feet. They have an iconic bell tower you can see up at the top. It's got a library there, classrooms, offices, galleries, theater, rooftop amphitheater. I don't know who buys this. You would think maybe some big tech companies would do it. But as we've seen, a lot of tech companies are folding or laying off or cutting expenses. So,
or even just getting rid of their property footprint.
Right.
They're like, everyone work from home.
People are working from home. Why do we need this big fancy campus? But what a location and what a building.
The location, even the Fort Mason and the other locations, I don't know how they had prime locations for this.
I'm telling you, I mean, everywhere. It seems like everywhere. There's a San Francisco Art Institute building, and they have the most beautiful buildings. Well, they're in trouble, so it's not going to work. Anyway, a little bit about the economy. I wanted to talk about that, but also I heard word, and I thought I had a picture of him in here, but I might not. I had reported at the time, and for a few weeks thereafter, and I've kind of been following the story of Julian Sands, the actor. Well, I don't know if you saw that a few days ago, human remains were found in the area where he went hiking in January. They've now confirmed, officials, that it is the body of actor Julian Sands. He was found on Mount Baldy in Southern California. He reported missing in January. Search crews have been going to that area. They haven't given up the search for him. And now they found him, 65 years old. He was on a winter hike and he disappeared. And I don't think we still understand what happened there. Julian Sands, known for his role in A Room with a View, that came out in 1985. There he is, Julian Sands. His face should look familiar. He's been in a lot of things. Just kind of, this guy goes out for a hike and never comes home. He is survived by 3 adult children. His brother, who's been spearheading the search for him. It's sad that this is the way that it ended up for him. I mean, I'm glad his family has closure that they found his body finally. Yeah, but I feel pretty sad about that. So actor Julian Sands.
Any update of what happened? He just kind of got stranded, or
was he overcome by floodwaters? Was he overcome by the weather? Was there a flash flood? And no, nothing. They have said
or
nothing.
Like a health emergency during the hike. So
yeah, we don't know. No other information yet, as far as I understand. Yeah, just all we know right now is that his body has finally been found. So, sad situation. All right, let's do a little bit of news, and then I welcome John Rothmann to the broadcast. He has a new podcast. We'll tell you a little more about that. And there's so much going on politically to talk to him about. More developments in the Trump case. You won't believe
There's never been
the
anything
latest...
like this.
Thank you. You won't believe the latest excuse for the whole audio tape that we were listening to yesterday. Yeah, we'll get to why bravado is an excuse. But first, let's do a little news.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There is a new California wildfire burning down homes. Flames sparked in Riverside County yesterday, moved really fast through the town of Paris, closing roads, forcing evacuations for 6 hours. I shouldn't say through the town, but through that area, the area of Paris, Perris. Crews raced to stop it from spreading beyond 55 acres. Couldn't save 2 homes, though. Those were lost. Several cars damaged. Most families were allowed to return last night. That fire is now 5% contained. There's a second one about 30 miles away in San Bernardino County. It started right afterward. It is up to 90 acres. It is 2% contained. So, yeah, here's what we know is we are now in fire season. We are seeing it. And, here we go. We're running away with that again. California a step closer to sealing a new budget deal. Governor Gavin Newsom signed a placeholder bill yesterday after reaching an agreement with lawmakers on Monday night. Voting will continue today on bills related to the state's second largest spending plan ever at $310 billion. And that includes money for education, social service programs, housing, public transportation, clean energy, and it gives more to childcare providers as well. There's a push to boost juror pay in California. That is moving forward. It's a bill that would expand a pilot program now making its way through the state Senate. San Francisco started this last spring, paying $100 a day instead of $15 a day. That seems more reasonable, does it? I mean, with you possibly losing out on revenue from work, your travel expenses, spending all day there, they're going to pay you $100 a day instead of $15
It's a wild
a day.
idea, but it just might work.
Mostly for people who are self-employed who are not compensated for jury duty. The goal is to do the same in Los Angeles, Alameda, Kern, and Monterey counties. That would start in January if this whole thing is approved by Governor Gavin Newsom. But yeah, again, as it stands, you only get $15 a day. I guess that'll cover your lunch maybe? If you're
so they
frugal.
mail it to you. They mail it to you just like a couple weeks after. But I can only imagine, people are super creative with trying to get out of jury duty. I can't wait to see what they're trying to do to get, into jury duty for this
get their
some
$100
easy money for just sitting around doing nothing.
Hanging out.
Yep.
Well, we're back into Canadian wildfire smoke again. It was gone, it's back. It was gone, now it's back again. It is blanketing the Midwest. Millions of people in Chicago, Detroit, Michigan, Cleveland, Ohio, Pittsburgh, elsewhere dealing with this unhealthy air quality. The smoke expected to move east, hitting parts of western and central New York again as well. Big issues, Albert, at airports, especially ahead of the 4th of July. It seems like I know a lot of people that have traveled to the East Coast. Everyone experiencing delays or flight cancellations. And now we have yesterday's issues. More than 3,600 flights have already been delayed or canceled so far today as well. The biggest, busiest airports, hardest hit. President Biden, I guess, had a bit of a gaffe. While talking to reporters outside the White House today, President Biden said it's clear Russian President Vladimir Putin is losing the war in Iraq. Wait, what? What war in Iraq? Yeah. He mistakenly referred to Iraq instead of Ukraine. The president reportedly made the same mistake during a campaign reception in Maryland on Tuesday. I think he knows the difference. I think sometimes you misspeak, but there will be people that point out he must not be mentally stable. So, debris of that Titan submersible is now in Canada. A ship carrying pieces of the wreckage recovered from the bottom of the ocean where that vessel suffered a catastrophic implosion returned to port on Wednesday morning. A crane offloaded the debris that looked to include the nose of the Titan, and again, now in Canada pending an investigation. Airbnb is giving guests the chance to stay in a real-life Malibu dream house. The company announced it'll be giving away 2 one-night stays inside the dream house next month to celebrate the release of the Barbie movie. The California mansion is actually located in Malibu. It's painted hot pink from floor to ceiling, inside and out. I think they used this for the new Barbie movie, but hey, if that's your bag, you could totally stay there. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
I was looking for that pink house picture, so I
Oh, you were
let me
looking
get
for the
my
pink house
phone to
picture?
it. Yeah, because it's a
All right.
ridiculously pink house. Maybe we'll have it for our next segment.
We'll do it in That's Rich. How about that?
Okay, I like that.
I like it. All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod. Use Mark Thompson.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Calling me a liar? Is that what you call me?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir?
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret talent?
Doesn't anybody but a weed?
100% effective, how about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Oh, Mark and Courtney are on vacation. At last check, they were in San Francisco. They had stopped by the Red Jack Saloon, and they were drinking the martini. John Daly was there. He was ordering the Kimikaze, and that was going on. That was last night. I think today they're making their way up to the Lake Tahoe area. They may be stopping by Tenuta Vineyards today. So they're on kind of a Bay Area tour. Here's the Red Jack. Yeah.
Bay Area tour is a nice way for you to say an alcoholic escape.
You know, they're touring our most beautiful alcohol institutions. That's the Red Jack in San Francisco. I guess they made an appearance there last night, and they stole the show at the Red Jack Saloon, so that's fun. And again today, out to Tenuta likely is where they will go, where they will be tasting this flight of wine, looking at these beautiful rolling hills and the vineyards. So that'll be pretty good.
Yeah, Mark's just checking in on all of his signature, his products,
Yeah, you have to do that. You have to press the flesh and, make sure people are still along for the ride. And, no, I think he's just having a really good time going around meeting people, seeing things. But I'm here, Albert's here, and you know who else is here? My very good friend, former KGO talk show host, brilliant mind. He is John Rothmann. Yay, John Rothmann.
Kim, you didn't tell them about the drink that you now have a name attached to.
Yeah, the Kimikaze. It's the Kimikaze. I think it's vodka, triple sec,
What?
some type of lime mixture. And according to John Daly, who ordered the kimikaze last night, it's pretty good. And of course, the Red Jack, all the money that they take in from these drinks, they kick into the show. The sign, if I had the sign, I'd show it to you. It says, it's our way of helping local talk radio that had to switch platforms. So we appreciate the Red Jack and what they're doing for us. And I love that I have that, a kimikaze.
If I were a drinking man, I would drink a toast to Kim McAllister.
Well, let's talk about the tape. How do you not talk about the tape, right? The tape that seems even more damning than the transcripts, where Trump is waving papers around and admitting that he can't declassify things, and they're making jokes and as if it's nothing big to, flick around the nuclear secrets. But Trump now says this recording was merely bravado. It's all bravado, he says. He didn't show the secret documents. He says the recording of him talking about sensitive military documents just amounted to bravado. He says he claimed he did not show off anything classified when he said on the tape that he was handling highly confidential secret information in front of guests. Oh no. He talked to ABC News a day after CNN aired that tape. And he says, yeah, it's bravado. And I don't know if we can play this video for John, Albert, but there's a response from a lawyer who says, bravado, that's your excuse? If your excuse is bravado, what you're saying is you're an admitted liar. Joyce White Vance went on television and was talking about how bravado is really the worst excuse of all. That I don't know if we can show the video, but what do you think, John? Do you think bravado is going to work?
No, he's in deep trouble.
Yeah.
And he's in deep trouble because he talked about secrets. He talked about nuclear facilities. This is not the first time he's done that. I would remind you, when he was president, he received intelligence from the Israelis, which he then relayed to the world, and severely embarrassing a lot of people in intelligence. So I think Donald Trump is in deep trouble, and I think the fact that he keeps talking about it gets him in deeper trouble. And if I were his lawyer, I would tell him to keep his mouth shut.
Right.
The real problem is that he doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut, and it's too late. It's on tape. So I think Donald Trump is going to have real problems. And we have not yet heard from the January 6th report that is coming from the Justice Department. We have not heard from Georgia and what's happening there. So I think Donald Trump has a lot of problems. What's interesting to me is this blind faith that at least 30% of Americans seem to have in him, and tragically, evidently over 70% of Republicans. And that to me is a real tragedy. But all of this will be aired, and he does have a court date, although it's flexible. I think August 14th is the date. And we'll just have to wait now and see. But this has not been a good week for Donald Trump.
I have another piece of video, Albert, that I'm hoping we can show, because it really goes to what John Rothman is saying. And it's Liz Cheney talking to CNN, and I'm sure you've seen what she had to say, but she's talking about how we are basically electing idiots, and that, America has to smarten up and wisen up here. We're in trouble. Why is America electing these people? Let's take a listen to what Liz Cheney has to say.
And in our politics is create a situation where we're electing idiots. And
yeah, but she's not joking. It's funny, but it's not, right?
And so I don't look at it through the lens of is this what I should do or what I shouldn't do? I look at it through the lens of how do we elect serious people? And I think electing serious people can't be partisan.
We're back now with GOP presidential candidate Asa Hutchinson. Some laughs there in the room.
We can leave Asa Hutchinson. But yeah, I wanted to play you what Liz Cheney had to say.
I love Liz Cheney. Her book is coming out. Let me be clear, I would never vote for her because we disagree on too many issues.
Right.
But the American people are not electing idiots. We are electing people who have a particular ideology, and that ideology is being reflected in Donald Trump and his popularity. These are not dumb people. These are not idiots. These are people who have decided to ride a political crest which Donald Trump heads. And I think that is the problem. We do need good people to run for political office, but I just want to point out, to run for political office is a very complicated situation. You've got to raise money. You've got to be able to keep your supporters behind you. And one of the great things that happened, and I think it's one of the most important things in recent days, is the decision by the United States Supreme Court on a 6-3 decision yesterday to throw out all of these conspiracy theories. What is a marvelous thing about what the court did is that they really nailed Donald Trump and John Eastman and all of the conspiracy theorists and said, no, we're not going to accept that. So I'm an optimist. You have to understand, I don't believe people are idiots. I believe that people believe in someone, but it's like dating. You may think you've met the perfect person and then you get to know them. And what I'm hoping is the American people, at least the Republicans, will get to know Donald Trump more intimately and understand what a fraud and fake he is. He's really the Elmer Gantry of American politics.
I have to believe that people really don't like Trump. They really don't like Lauren Boebert. They really don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene. They really, didn't like Gates. That they understand who these people are, but vote for them despite the ridiculousness of the candidate as a person, because they know that they will vote for the policies they want. Right? They'll put these justices up there. Trump will put these justices up there that align with, what their stance on abortion and, taking rights away from people and what have you. I would like to think that we all understand that we're electing idiots, but we're doing it for a purpose.
Kim, look at Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy, who on January 6th denounced what happened and blamed Donald Trump, then went down and kissed the ring in Mar-a-Lago. And now is caught up in a situation where he was very honest. He said Donald Trump would not be the strongest Republican nominee for president. Donald Trump's people hit the roof. Donald Trump hit the roof. What did Kevin McCarthy do? He picked up the phone to apologize to Donald Trump. We have a spineless Republican Party.
Yeah.
I was fascinated this morning to hear Paul Ryan, the former Speaker of the House and the Republican nominee for vice president with Mitt Romney back in 2016, who was very clear, not 2016, sorry, 2012. Let me correct myself. It was fascinating to hear Paul Ryan say, we just can't do that again. And frankly, there are Republicans like Paul Ryan, like John Boehner, former speakers of the House of Representatives, who understand the situation, but they are reluctant, for whatever reason, to tackle this incredible situation in the Republican Party. They should be battling for the soul of the Republican Party. And I would never vote.
Natalie writes, there are people that do like them because they are willing to say that quiet part out loud. Views that others often feel but aren't courageous enough to say. The closet racists love them.
Yeah, there's no question about it. But we have to continue to pursue the truth. That means that we have to call it for what it is. Donald Trump is somebody who should never again be president. I don't think he should ever have been president. But this is a man who clearly, when it comes to national security, is completely irresponsible. We have to recognize that we may disagree with an Asa Hutchinson, who is at least a Republican candidate for president, who is standing up and saying that Donald Trump has no business in the White House again. So those are the kinds of voices that need to be heard. How do you explain the polls? That's a whole other question. And I want to again reiterate what the Supreme Court did by a 6-3 vote was to put down these election conspiracy theories, or even the thought, as John Eastman said, that legislatures can overthrow the will of the people. This is constructive. Now, let me also point out that, Kim, before we speak again next week, and I'll be with you next Thursday, not next Wednesday, because I'll be up in Oregon, and we're going to do it Thursday when I get back. I just want to be crystal clear. The affirmative action case is coming down. The odds are, if you believe the speculation, that the Supreme Court will put an end to affirmative action. But let me also point out that people thought the Supreme Court would put an end to this case as well. The justices, I think, are doing what the Chief Justice has asked them to do. Reflect on the issue, but also reflect on history. We saw in the Roe decision, the decision to overturn Roe, that the Dobbs decision, that the Supreme Court was not, I think, thinking rationally. It was a 5-4 decision. So the court does divide. We have to wait now and see what happens on affirmative action, which will come this week. It'll probably, and I'll be talking about it on my podcast as soon as it comes down,
You mentioned election officials, and there's a couple stories I wanted to talk to you about because one of them includes the Georgia top election official, Brad Raffensperger, who today is going to sit down with federal investigators involved in the investigation into the 2020 election scandal and Donald Trump's attempt to overturn it.
And they have tapes. They have tapes, which you have played and I have played. Donald Trump. Go ahead. Sorry.
So he's likely going to be asked about this phone call where the former president asked him to find enough votes to beat Joe Biden in the state. That's not all, though. And, I think because you saw people like Raffensperger stand up and say, I'm not going to find votes for you. I'm not going to do this. Well, now there's a spotlight on a little elections official in Wisconsin. They have deadlocked on the reappointment of their elections chief in what is really a key battleground state. The top election official, her name is Megan Wolf. She's the administrator of the Wisconsin Election Commission. She was targeted by Republican lawmakers and conservative activists after the 2020 election, after Biden kind of flipped that swing state, Wisconsin, on his way to the White House. Her term was supposed to end on Saturday. And there was a stalemate, kind of a deadlock as to whether they were going to reappoint her. And it looks like some of the 6-member panel voiced support for her. Some people didn't want her. And so they have deadlocked on whether or not to reappoint her. She is nonpartisan. She has not stated whether, what party she's for. But I think that with everything that happened, especially with Raffensperger and other election officials, now these positions are really being looked at, and they don't want somebody who's neutral. They want somebody who's going to go to bat for them.
That's what the Republicans want. Let me point out to you in Texas, the Attorney General, Paxton, who became a great advocate of this election fraud business, is about to lose his job. He will be impeached. He has been impeached. He will be convicted, I believe. There is, I think, a sense of decency. People may agree, and let me state it clearly, people may agree with Donald Trump or the conservative Republicans, so-called conservative Republicans on issues, but they mustn't accept these kinds of attempts to subvert American democracy. And that's why the Supreme Court decision on a 6-3 vote yesterday was so important. It could have as easily gone the other way. And let me remind you, on the Supreme Court, you are not required to recuse yourself. Clarence Thomas, who has been, he's married to an election denier, it's unbelievable that he is allowed on the court. He ought to be removed, but you can't remove a sitting justice of the Supreme Court unless you impeach them. And only one justice has ever been impeached, Samuel Chase, back in 1805, and he was acquitted by the Senate. So the process here is very important. But now we know the deep-seated prejudices. And that's why, and I really mean this with every ounce of my being, and those of you who listen to me over many, many years know I've said, it matters who is president, because the president shapes the court. It is the president who nominates not only the Supreme Court, but the district courts and the appellate courts. So we know that it makes a difference who is president. And if, for instance, there were vacancies today, those vacancies would be filled by nominees of Joe Biden rather than a Donald Trump, and it would make a world of difference. Yeah. But that's why this affirmative action case, which I come back to, is so important.
Let's talk about the Supreme Court for a moment, though, because there's a new push by Democrats who have written a letter delivered yesterday calling on the Supreme Court for a Supreme Court investigation into allegations of the ethical improprieties against Justice Clarence Thomas. They want ethics reforms to prevent this type of violation in the future. Makes perfect sense to me. Why aren't there rules covering this? And how does this go anywhere, do you think?
Okay. Let me be clear. It's not only Clarence Thomas, it's Samuel Alito, who is also having serious ethical problems. There was a case of a Supreme Court justice. His name was Abe Fortas. He was nominated by Lyndon Johnson, not only to be a justice, but then there was an attempt by Lyndon Johnson to have him become Chief Justice, succeeding Earl Warren. That did not succeed. But in the end, Abe Fortas in 1969 resigned from the court because he had received $20,000 from a man named Wolfson. And Wolfson was an old friend of his, giving him money, and there was an ethical question. And the Republicans and the Democrats agreed that Abe Fortas should leave the court, and he did. The court has to do it itself. Remember that the various branches of government make their own rules. That means to say that the House and the Senate make their own rules about how they treat their members. We're going through this now in the House and in the Senate, particularly in the Senate, because you have Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, who is blocking all of the Defense Department nominees. And now there is a rebellion, if you will, among the senators to rewrite the rules, because what this guy is doing is so disruptive. The power that each branch has to police itself is what's critical. If I were John Roberts and I wanted to leave a lasting legacy, the ethics will not come from the Senate. The Democrats have proposed an ethics bill for the Supreme Court. That's not going to fly. What's going to fly is when the Supreme Court itself adopts its own ethics rules, and they should go back to the Abe Fortas case and take a hard look at it. If you apply the same standard that was applied to Abe Fortas, to Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, both of them would be off the court.
Well, are they want to do that, though? I mean, how likely is it that someone's going to enforce a rule or enact a rule that would allow them to not take the fancy trips, not get the money, have their nephew's school paid for?
The court itself will have to make those rules. Yeah. It will not come from the Senate or the House. It will come from the Supreme Court itself. And I happen to think that the decision yesterday, the 6-3 decision, was critical because John Roberts, I think, even if I disagree with him on many issues, is a highly ethical person, and he understands that it is the Roberts court. And I think he's looking at his legacy, and I think other justices are going to do the same thing. It is clear that Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito do not want an ethical standard there, but a majority of the court can make those rules.
Let's flip over to Israel. Earlier this week, I was reading a story that Israel is going to increase its housing expansion in the West Bank, something that we know causes problems and tensions, right? And so now today there's a story out of CNN that's Antony Blinken is telling, says the U.S. told Israel violence with Palestinians could actually jeopardize normalization with Saudi Arabia. So the unstable nature of what's happening between Israel and Palestine continues to threaten that region. Can you talk a little bit about the housing expansion and how this is all playing out?
Sure, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out that you talked about housing expansion right here in Northern California. We face a situation in San Francisco where they want to build on the old Garden Center out in Sunset, a huge tower. There's no question. Housing is a critical issue. It is not the settlement issue which is the problem in Israel. The problem in Israel is that the Palestinian leadership still reject the very right of Israel to exist. They view Tel Aviv as a settlement. So I do not believe that settlements represent an obstacle to peace. What you have to have is an agreement that Israel is a permanent part of the Middle East. By the way, the expansions are taking place in existing settlements which no Israeli government will dismantle. But I think it's an excuse. The real question is not whether Palestinians have rights. They do. The real question is whether Israel has a right to exist. And yes, to create housing, and yes, to do all the things they want to do. At the same time, Palestinian rights have to be respected, and they need a leadership that will take that stand. Let me point out to you, there's a huge problem now. Mahmoud Abbas is a very weak Palestinian leader. He's in his mid-80s. He is certainly, he's not even technically president because his term expired so many years ago. They won't hold new elections because they're afraid. They're afraid that Hamas will win Palestinian elections in the West Bank. Remember that Hamas controls Gaza. The Palestinian Authority does not control Gaza. So it is a highly complex situation. But I want to emphasize that Joe Biden believes very strongly in a two-state solution based on an independent Palestinian state, and that the Palestinians view settlements as an attempt to subvert that viewpoint.
Right.
I would also remind everyone that Israel withdrew unilaterally from the Gaza, withdrew its settlements, withdrew its settlers, and the idea was a quid pro quo, that there would be a peace agreement. There is no peace with Gaza. Hamas controls Gaza. So the lesson the Israelis have learned is when they pull back, they are viewed as weak. But I happen to believe very strongly that in the end, Israelis and Palestinians are going to have to learn how to live together. And
We'll
that
see how
means
that works out.
Well, it does work in certain areas of Israel, and it can work, and that's what we have to work for. Because if we don't have that, there'll never be peace. It'll be a perpetual conflict, which may be
understand
the case anyway.
this region so much better than I do, but when I think about how why the Palestinians are so upset over these housing settlements, I kind of think in my mind how it would be if the United States just decided to go into Canada and start building, subdivisions in Canada and say, well, this now is part of the United
But it's
States.
not the same thing. It
Explain.
isn't. Remember that Israel is an independent country, that it occupies or controls a territory which they acquired in a war. Let me remind you that a peace deal was struck with the Palestinian Authority. In return for no more terrorism, there would be a retreat. And the Israelis did withdraw from various parts of the West Bank. And what were they faced with? More terror. And the same thing applies in Gaza. They withdrew completely from Gaza, withdrew all their settlements, all their settlers, destroyed structures or left structures for the Palestinians, which the Palestinians then destroyed. The Israelis are caught on the horns of a dilemma. But let me be very clear.
Why would they want to go back and resettle those areas or build more housing in those areas when they know it's a contentious matter?
Because they're already there. You can go onto the West Bank, or which I've done many, many times, and these are existing settlements. You know that Jerusalem, it's very interesting. If you go to Jerusalem, there are Jewish neighborhoods, there are Arab neighborhoods, and both keep growing. But you can't eliminate the fact that these are areas of growth. So my suggestion really is that we need to have two sides who are willing to talk. And if the Palestinians came forward, and they will not under Abbas or under Hamas, to say, okay, we're willing to cut a deal with you. They've been offered deal after deal. All you have to do is read Bill Clinton's memoirs about the final negotiations he had in 2000 as he was about to leave office. And Arafat, who was then the leader of the Palestinians, rejected it all. And all you have to do now is take a look at what Hamas is saying and, frankly, what the Palestinian Authority is saying. The bottom line is, as long as the Palestinians refuse to accept Israel's right to exist as a nation, the Israelis have no interlocutor with whom to make peace. So it's a serious conundrum. Joe Biden is conducting an admirable policy. He is saying, okay, we want to deal with the Palestinians. And let me point out to you, as Anthony Blinken condemns Israeli expansion, I'm waiting for the Biden administration as well to condemn the violence that comes from the Palestinian Authority and from Hamas. It has to be an even playing field in terms of those kinds of discussions. So that's really the bottom line. Israel's right to exist cannot be put in jeopardy in order to guarantee radical Islam and Hamas their rights as well. It's incompatible.
John Rothmann, I adore you. Before we go, I want to talk a little bit about your podcast, Around the Politcal World, with John Rothmann. I know you say to Google it, but can you tell me what podcast platforms that your show is on?
It's on Amazon. Okay. It's right there. All you have to do is Google Around the Politcal World with John Rothmann, and it springs right up. And by the way, we're also now putting my segments with you and Mark up as well.
Oh, look at that.
And people can go to it. I give about under 10 minutes 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. My observations, there is a caption under each broadcast to explain what the broadcast will be. And I'm having a lot of fun doing it. I regret, and I want to say this very clearly, that there can't be more interaction. I miss call-ins. I miss the vigorous debate. I miss that vigorous discussion. But we are doing our best, as you are and Mark is doing, to try to make what we had something that is still available to people. And so that's our goal. Around the Political World with John Rothmann, 5 days a week. I record about 7:30 in the morning, and it's posted by 9 o'clock.
This is awesome. So something for people that are missing you, that really want to hear what you're thinking about issues of the day, a great way to catch up with John Rothmann.
And you can see at the bottom of your screen, they've actually put up the information.
I know. Albert, he's good like that, you know.
Yeah, Albert, 3 cheers for Albert. And may I say, next week, I will not be here on Wednesday. I'll be here on Thursday. You guys are being very flexible because of my travel schedule, but I want to extend to everybody a happy 4th of July. Whatever faults we have in this country, we have a lot to celebrate. And the Supreme Court gave us something to celebrate yesterday. Let's see what they do by the end of the week. And that may be the topic for next week. Kim,
well, John Rothmann, safe
toast
travels.
to you.
Thank you for being here. Always grateful to have you. And we'll see you next Thursday.
With great pleasure. Thank you.
Bye. John Rothmann, everybody. Before we go to an interview that Mark has prepared, I want to make sure that you are aware, of course, that we have a website, themarkthompsonshow.com. It's where our Patreon link and PayPal link, you can find the Mark merchandise there as well. If you are itching for a throw pillow or a really nice embroidered sweatshirt, all that is there for you. And of course, the super chat is live right here on the Mark Thompson Show. And I mention it because I just saw a contribution pop up from Luis. John, where do I send my contributions in support of your campaign for San Francisco mayor, he says. So John Rothmann is considering a run, although we haven't heard if the final decision has been made. But Luis, thank you for this $10 super sticker and contributing to the show.
Thank you,
It's
thank you,
crowdfunded.
thank you.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for all that you guys do to help support the show. And thank you, Luis. But right now, let's go to this video. And I don't know, Albert, if you can bring it up, but this is an interview with an actor. His name is John Shuck. And maybe a lot of you know who he is. I have to admit that I didn't connect the name with the face, but he is one of these people. The minute you see his face, it's like all the things you remember from your childhood coming back to you, where you know who this man is. It's a fascinating interview to listen to about his experiences in Hollywood, all the things that he's done and the experiences he's had. So let's take a listen to this friendship, this experience that Mark Thompson had with actor John Shuck.
The Mark Thompson Show.
My wife wants some vegetables for crudité.
I was a basketball referee.
Feels great, baby.
Who's Mark Thompson?
It's unbelievably offensive.
What he's got going here is a situation.
I was fortunate. Everyone I worked with made me better at my job.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Oh, I know it. It's hard to imagine a guest like the one we have coming on. And what I mean is a guy who I have such personal affections for, and you will have such great personal memories of, because he's been in so many terrific projects through the years as an actor. In fact, his life crosses over the Bay Area and San Francisco in a significant way. How about it for the brilliant actor, John Shuck? Yeah, you know it. John Shuck, welcome, sir. Welcome.
Hello there, Mark. My buddy,
John,
my pal.
Yeah. John and I have known each other for ages.
Oh.
It's true. We met
Yes,
at
it
a
is.
charity
We
event.
distinctly remember, Kim, the first time I saw Mark, I was on tour in Annie, and we were playing Buffalo, New York, my hometown. And it was the middle of winter. And Channel 7 had their weatherman at that time stand out on a porch outside for the 11 o'clock forecast.
I love it.
And this particular day, it was Mark as the weather person. And the snow was coming down like crazy.
It is true.
And by the end of his broadcast, he had white hair. It looked like he'd grown 3 inches.
It was a catchy idea they had. And now you see more and more stations do it. They called it the weather outside. But that was the first station in America that did it. It was in Buffalo, New York. And I didn't realize that you actually saw me back then.
I did. And then when we met, a gazillion years later at a charity event, I was able to put 2 and 2 together because it was unforgettable.
Well,
and we wonder why Mark doesn't do the weather anymore, right?
Nice to have left
well,
that
whether
all
he
behind.
does or doesn't, that was memorable.
So John, you know, I was mentioning that you've done all of these things. I mean, my God, we'll get to the original MASH movie. You know, MASH, the TV series. Kim, you may not realize that, but there was a film before it was based on a movie.
Yeah.
That Altman film.
Was I born yesterday? What?
I just don't know. I'd like to presume too much. You're a young gal. Might not. Anyway, John was in that. And I believe you met Altman during your time at ACT. Is that right? I remember something.
Right. He had come up to see Michael Learned, who later played Ma Walton, for the part of Lieutenant Dish. And he came to see the play that I was performing in with Michael and her then husband, Peter Donat, brilliant actor. And it was a play called Little Murders by Jules Pfeiffer, a very dark comedy. And that was how I met him at a bar afterwards. And then a few days later, he called and said, how'd you like to be in the movies? And he was talking about the Tommy Skerritt part in the movie. And then he called again a few days later and said, they can't do that. They've got a contract player at 20th Century Fox by the name of Burt Reynolds, who they want. Well, Burt didn't get it, but Tom did. And I thought I was out of the movies as quickly as I'd been offered to get in. A week goes by and he calls again and said, how about the role of Painless? And I said, refresh my memory because I don't remember that one. He did, and I said yes, and I was released from my contract by Bill Ball at ACT to do it.
It was the Painless role it's big in the story.
It is, but I have a little secret. The original script, which incidentally won the Academy Award that year, Ring Lardner Jr.'s script was very episodic in the telling. This happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then, frankly, it was a snore. And I think I was snoring when I got to the Painless part in the movie.
That's why you didn't remember it? Yeah.
But that's how it was originally assembled. And then when Altman went to work and realized that the movie wasn't working, he did some clever things. He re-edited sequence. For example, after Joanne Flug has been satisfied by my arousal, I played the Painless Pole, who we won't go into what that actually was, but it was very pleasing to some people. And it's why you will never see a nude photo of me, because I have a myth to protect.
I see.
Yes, as to the size of my organs.
I get it, John. I get it.
And anyway, you see this shot where Joanne Flug is being helicoptered out, and coming in is Sally Kellerman. Well, in reality, that incident didn't happen like that. Kellerman didn't arrive till much later in the picture, and there we are. Yeah,
there's John on the left. Yeah,
but what a great way to come into the Hollywood was with that picture.
So that began a relationship you had with Altman. You were in some subsequent films. Let me ask you about, I mean, notable Altman films. I want to say Brewster McCloud and McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
Right.
Thieves Like Us. There was a thing about Altman movies, real quick, not to get, this isn't a film class or anything, but I always wondered this. There's a lot of overlapping dialogue. It has a very kind of cinema verite. You feel like you're, like almost like the actors are ad-libbing. Are you guys, or was it all really, it was really scripted?
Yeah, well, less so in MASH. There was a lot more so-called improvisation by the time we got to Thieves Like Us, and to some extent with the Warren Beatty, Julie Christie picture. But it wasn't like you see in a nightclub where give me a name and a situation and then people start ad-libbing for 5 minutes and are terrific at it. We were more of a conversation. He'd say, this scene that we're doing tomorrow, what do you think about this? And why don't you just say the words for me so I can hear it? And he says, I don't know if that's strong enough. And he'd start giving ideas. And you had overnight to think about all this until the next day when you came to do it, it had all kind of matured. And so occasionally you would deviate. And everybody was very good about picking up on that deviation. Sometimes it would lead to good things, sometimes it wouldn't. But that's how it worked. It was very, very informal.
Did yeah, there's John again.
With Bob Plotski and Bette Midler picture, yeah.
It's interesting. The world for you, and this is why I always think of your career with a certain reverence. The world for you was one of really being a trained actor, and you were working in theater, legitimate theater. That is to say, curtain goes up, curtain goes down, 8 performances a week, whatever it is,
Right.
matinees, etc. That's a whole different skill, that kind of acting, versus a television and film where it seems you have to take the performance down. It's a different kind of thing. You did it all. And you went on to be doing film. We just have noted the Altman stuff and television. I didn't notice this until I was kind of reading up when I thought, well, I should look at John, some of the stuff that John has done. And you were in the first season of Mary Tyler Moore. You were doing TV work, episodic television. Did you have what was your feeling back then as an actor in Hollywood? Did you feel like you'd made it, or do you never have that feeling?
I never had that feeling. And I've always had to audition. I can think of 2 or 3 things in my career where the part was just offered. And the most recent of those was in a movie for Lifetime this past Christmas with Rita Moreno as my wife, or I as her husband, I guess is the correct order, called Santa Boot Camp. If you missed it, it's okay.
Well, let me say this: if we missed it, it'll probably be around this Christmas again.
But hopefully, but most of the time, I've always had to audition, which I hate because I'm terrible at it. I need process. I need time to get to things.
Tell everybody about, you once mentioned to me the Woody Allen audition, which was wasn't there an odd thing about the Woody Allen audition? I barely remember it. You might not remember it either, but.
Well, I do remember that the casting director came out and she said, now, whatever you do, I'm going to forget what it was, but whatever it was, I did it. And I'm glad I did because it engaged him. But I've heard weird things about him that I knew one actor who was supposed to meet Woody Allen in Central Park for this audition. And the guy said, I don't have a script or anything. He said, don't worry about it. Everything, it's all very informal. So he's standing at the appointed place, and about 50 yards away is a tunnel. And all of a sudden, out of the tunnel comes Woody Allen, who just stands there for about a minute and looks at the guy and then walks back into the tunnel.
And that was it?
That was it. He got a call about a half hour later from his agent saying he got the part.
Wow, that is weird.
I'd like an audition like that.
Yeah, exactly. Just show up at the tunnel.
Yeah.
The thing I remember from what you had mentioned to me was they give you just one page. They didn't tell you much of anything about the character.
That is correct. Nobody in that picture, not Helen Hunt or Dan Aykroyd, nobody got a full script. And it made it very difficult. And the fact is, one day I had about 2 pages of a telephone conversation, and we're shooting it. And when I get to the end of it, thinking I'm going to hear cut, and there was a long pause, and then I hear Woody say, "Okay, let's go on to the next part." Well, I didn't have a next part. I only had the pages I was given. Cut. And he said, "How quickly can you learn this?" Well, it was this long, it was big. And I said, maybe after lunch. And so I ended up pinning the lines on the wall. Unfortunately, the camera couldn't see that. And I kind of used it as a cue card. And it was a very terrible way of making film. I was not.
Yeah, you're such it seems like a real process, thoughtful actor that way, that you like to have the dialogue on there. But the world of Hollywood is replete with examples of people like Marlon Brando with the script written all over the place. Yes. There's legend, and you can see they have pictures now of other actors in the scene with Marlon Brando holding cue cards on their bodies. And it's wild, but it worked for him, and he also had an earwig, etc. So
yeah, well, thanks for mentioning me in the same breath with Marlon Brando. There's no comparison.
What was so great about Marlon Brando?
His mystery, and he always had you on edge. It was almost like something was going to happen. Was he going to be violent? Was he going to be this? Was he going to be angry? Was he going to seduce you? I mean, he just had all this color, and for someone who supposedly mumbled, had great nuance in the way he would do lines.
I remember Nicholson talking about the fact that he was going to do the Martin Sheen role in The Godfather. I'm sorry, excuse me. He was going to do the Pacino role in The Godfather, but he was told, because he wanted to be in the scene. There's a shot of you. That looks like, I don't know what it's a publicity photo for something.
Yes, that's a publicity photo for a television show with Sharon Gless.
Oh, yeah.
Called Turnabout, where I played the woman and she played the man. Don't ask.
Anyway, just to round out the story, he turned down the role in The Godfather. Nicholson did, because I said I wanted to act with Marlon, but I realized I was only going to have 2 scenes with him, and I wanted more than 2 scenes with him. So clearly, the kind of reverence that the artistic and acting community has for Brando is shared by so many. I always feel like acting is bringing a certain authenticity to a moment. You know what I mean, John? But it's more than just that. You're sort of suggesting, yeah, but that authenticity oftentimes has to have packed into it something, and that's what separated Brando, for example, in our conversation about Brando.
Exactly.
Yeah. What is that a shot from?
Well, at first I thought that was McCabe and Mrs. Miller, but I'm not. I really don't know.
Kim, what is that?
I found it on a list of pictures of Mr. Shuck, and clearly a Western. That's all I can tell you.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But the beard and the mustache, that's the only movie that I can remember having that. I did a couple of Gunsmokes and a Bonanza, but I don't think it's any of those.
Well, in your, as your career evolved, and you did, I'll tell you another San Francisco thing that you were involved in.
Right? I have information. I'm sorry. Busting back in with it. It is John Shuck as Harvey Kid Curry Logan in Butch and Sundance, the early
Butch
days.
And Sundance, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the prequel to Butch and Sundance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, wasn't as good. McMillan and Wife is what I was thinking of.
Yes.
That, I'm sure, it's shot on the Universal backlot or wherever you shot McMillan and Wife.
Well, the first couple of seasons, we actually went up and did 2 weeks worth of shooting in San Francisco, which was great. But then we became successful on the coattails of Columbo. And after this, beginning with the 3rd season, you never saw a car parked like this.
Yeah, you were part of the mystery movie wheel, right?
Right.
It was Columbo. It was McMillan and wife. Hang on, I want to try to remember this. Columbo, McMillan and wife. Wasn't there like McLeod was one of them?
Dennis Weaver, right? Good.
And then there was one more though. It was like Banachek or something like
yeah,
that.
It kept changing every year.
Yeah, right. It wasn't
It was the one program that they couldn't quite get the hang.
But McMillan and wife was a hit. Now, Rock Hudson played the police commissioner of San Francisco, right?
Whatever that job is, he was it.
And you used to always call him commissioner. That was great.
I called him commissioner. That's because I couldn't remember his name. But
I don't know. I was a kid, but I love that show. Now, here you are being made up for, is this Klingon makeup? Looks like
no, it's another Star Trek character, but one of the TV series.
So you did a whole bunch of Star Trek stuff.
Yeah.
You, there you are. Now that's in the feature. It looks like, as I recall.
One is. The other is another Star Trek thing with what's the wonderful black actor Ivory. Doesn't matter. He was wonderful in it, and that particular one, the one on the right there, was very difficult for me. I had all the lines in the morning, but I had waited for 12 hours until they got to my scene, and I was tired and I was hungry. And then they complicated it by walking around this set, which was a circle. And you had to stop at a certain point. Well, it all looked the same to me at that time. So I was constantly stopping and starting in the wrong place.
Oh, wow.
It was a nightmare. But eventually we pieced it together and got through it.
That was a feature for one of the TV series, Star Trek TV series?
One of the TV series.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Star Trek franchise just, blew up.
Yes.
And you attended some of those Star Trek conventions, didn't you?
I've been to 3 or 4 of them over the years. They're fun.
Yeah, I would think.
And the conventions like that, they do have a certain monetary reward, I suppose. And it's kind of sad in that most of us are in the later half of our career when we go to these things. But the thing I like about them is that you actually get to meet and talk with fans, and they make you realize that the work that you have done has meaning in their lives, and you've helped them, you've diverted them, you've entertained them. However it has affected them, they have been affected by what you do. And that's a wonderful thing to know.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting, the Star Trek franchise birthed by the TV series, of course, and now with very few of those TV series actors and participants still around.
Right.
You have like this is the Klingon ambassador role that you had. I mean, it really ascends to an even greater profile for many of those who really felt touched and inspired by that franchise. Some of them literally went into work in the sciences as a result of being exposed to Star Trek.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've met some of those.
Yeah.
I went to one in England, and it was held at a soccer arena, and we sat around the halls, and it was the middle of winter. Thank gosh there was a Target nearby, because we were able to buy out all their blankets and hover up. All of a sudden I look up and I see these bare legs and kilts from the waist down, and from the top up they're Klingons. and it was a group of guys from Scotland. And they awarded me the Scottish Fleet Air Marshal Award or something like that.
Wow.
It was a hoot.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to also say, just because I'm skipping from thing to thing, and then I want to get, because you're still so very active and you've just done a really important theater production, and I'll get to it in a second. Yeah. But The Munsters was a franchise, again, that was big on television the first time with, was it Fred Gwynne? And there were a lot of notable actors in it, I guess.
Fred Gwynne, Yvonne DiCarlo played Lily, the wife.
And then that went away, and it just felt as though it might have just been disposable television, but it came back in a really robust way. They brought it back as a syndicated show, and you played Herman Munster.
Yeah, I did. I had really mixed feelings about all that because the first one was so good, and it was the right show for the right time. And it was in black and white, and it was not done as a sitcom. We were done as a 3-camera sitcom after the first season, and we were in Technicolor. And with all due respect to those writers who worked so hard on it, most of them were not up to par. And so it's a job I had really mixed feelings about. I loved doing it and I loved the cast, but I did not like the work itself. And I console myself with the fact that it got me a house.
Yeah, the money was okay.
But we did almost 100 of those.
Wow, there you are.
Yeah.
Boy, you really sold it, though, huh? That's just part of the acting thing, man. No matter how you may think the script's a bit on the mediocre side, but you got to get out there and stick the landing.
You got to stick the bolts on too, and that makeup was difficult. We got it down to under 2 hours, and fortunately, I only had to wear it twice a week, as opposed to Fred, who had to. I don't know how he did it. And by the time we did this, the makeups were a lot better and a lot easier on you.
Let me ask you a question about money. You mentioned Fred Gwynn and that show, which was the right show for that time. Right. Tell me about by the time you got into the syndicated thing with the Munsters. I'm really more curious about Gwynn and people who are, these are actors who get onto television. But back then, I don't think the unions had negotiated much in the way of back-end compensation. I'm wondering if those actors were well paid, or were they among a group that had found high ground financially in television, or were TV actors kind of just working middle classers?
Well, I don't know. I know, like McMillan wife, nobody got rich. Well, I mean, Rock was paid the unheard salary of $60,000 an episode, but we only did 6 episodes, or 7, maybe 8 at the most. I was making $3,000 a week, so I made about $30-some thousand or $40,000. Which was a nice salary for someone, rent was cheaper in those days as sure. Was everything else. So I had a nice little roof over my head, my apartment and all that, but I certainly wasn't going to get rich on it. Right. And Valerie Harper's made a deal where she got paid for Rhoda, I think $25,000 an episode. Nowadays, a young kid, 7, who's hired as the child in a sitcom like Reba or something like that, they get $30,000-$40,000 a week. They haven't done anything except learn how to tie their shoes, maybe, And so these salaries that actors are getting paid are totally different than the whole economic thing of it is different. I've always had to work for a living, and I did fine, but not like these people who become get lucky enough to be on a hit show, and then they're independently wealthy the rest of their lives.
That's so true. Right. I mean, once that show goes into syndication, they literally never have to work again.
Yes.
We know a bunch of people like that now. And then I do want to get to the stage work. Now it's different because of streaming. The back end is sort of beginning to go away, and quotes are getting busted down, and back ends are evaporating.
Yeah.
And that's why, the unions are striking, Writers Guild and AFTRA, SAG, et cetera.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So times are changing yet again, and maybe going
yet again. Yeah. But for me, it was never about money anyway. It was about working. And as a result, I loved work so much that I took shows that I shouldn't have. And frankly, I took the Munsters today for money, but I would never do that again because I was very unhappy for 3.5 years.
Right. It's a weird thing, isn't it? Yeah. They're kind of many of us have been in those situations with the kind of the gilded cage,
Yes.
But who are the other actors who you have worked with. You worked with Reba McEntire on Broadway, and I thought you guys are terrific together.
Thank you.
She's a remarkable talent in that she can do so much.
You know? Oh, she's extraordinary, and has become one of our closest friends. She wasn't the reason we moved to Tennessee, but she was part of that reason. And then, and we love it here in this part of the country. It's been great to us.
I will say this:
yes,
when you moved to Nashville. When you, I didn't mean to interrupt, but when you moved to Nashville, and by the way, Reba's our best friend, it is a different kind of acclimatization process, or whatever the word is. You know, you can blend in more easily, I think, with the crowd than for the rest of us who are just getting dropped in the cold water of Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, no, I was just going to say that you had asked which actors. I don't remember. Well, you brought up Reba. But as long as we're talking about her, she is extraordinary. But number one, she's authentic. She's authentic as a person and as a talent. She's a good comedian, and she can do drama, as she did on that series this past year up in with all the gory murders and all that stuff. And then she's not a bad singer, you know. And at 60-some years of age, she is singing better than she ever has in her life. It's absolutely remarkable the way she is. You know, some people call it reinventing herself, but she is sustaining herself at an extraordinarily high level in all these areas.
I just think she's so versatile. I mean, I just call it basic versatile. I saw her live with Brooks and Dunn, and
yes, we're in Vegas.
In Vegas, and she was terrific. We,
great show.
But you've done a lot of Broadway. You did that with her, and I thought that was great. Annie, Get Your Gun, and Nice Work If You Can Get It. And it's so fun to see you on a big stage, a big Broadway stage. But regardless of your age, I mean, let's face it. I don't know how old you were when you were doing Nice Work If You Can Get It, but it's 8 shows a week, right?
Yeah, I was in my 70s, and my dressing room was on the 4th floor. So the first time I went to it, I think it took half a day.
There you are as Anne. This is you and Annie. Now, isn't that it? Or no, this is
this is White Christmas.
The White Christmas. Right. This is White Christmas. This is different. This is even more recent.
That is at the Old Globe in San Diego. A George Bernard Shaw play called Arms and the Man. Wow. Was a wonderful production, and that's Marsha. Oh my God. Anyway.
Yeah. Let me ask you. I want to go back though first to Annie on Broadway. Annie was this hit that had been birthed on Broadway.
Right.
And you came in and tell me, John, did you take on the role of Daddy Warbucks from the original cast?
Yes. I replaced not Harp Presnell. I replaced the original Warbucks.
Right.
And
with that is tremendous pressure, I would think. I mean, this thing was a juggernaut, Annie, okay? We now think of Annie, it's part of the culture, but at the time, that was Annie. It had just run, and now was this juggernaut on Broadway, sellout, and now you're replacing the lead. I mean, aside from Annie, Warbucks is the lead.
Right.
And what did you feel pressure, or were you just, was it mixed with excitement?
I was so happy, ecstatic, because from the time I'd been 5 years old when my parents took me to see Oklahoma at the St. James Theater in New York, I knew that night that I wanted to be a Broadway actor. And here we are 40 years later, and I'm finally getting that little jewel in the crown. And
what a jewel. I mean, the hottest show on Broadway.
Yeah.
Unreal.
It was unreal. And it was also the beginning of a lovely association with Sarah Jessica Parker, who was playing Annie at that time. Wow. And I stayed with it for 1.5 years until my wife got pregnant with our son, Aaron Bayshuk, who I hope we'll talk to all three of us.
Yeah, I'll mention who he is. He's
and I came back to Los Angeles. But one other thing happened. It was a matinee, and there's a scene at the end of Act 1 where Annie's called down, and I'm going to ask her if I can adopt her. And I present her with this bracelet from a Tiffany box. Lovely scene. Well, everything was great that afternoon until all of a sudden I couldn't think of Annie's name. And the only thought that ran through my mind was that if I looked up at the sign in front of the theater, I'd get the information that I needed. So I was calling her little girl, young lady. I mean, it was a total wipeout. So I called my wife and I said, I think it's time to hang it up.
I've lost focus.
I've lost focus.
Oh, that's really a great story, though. Oh, really, really great. Well, I mean, and you've had this love affair with the theater and it with you, and it continues. So I do want to I want to mention your family in a second, because your son did something incredibly notable and continues to do a lot of stuff that is blazing trails. We'll get to him in a second.
All right.
But I wanted to ask you about your most recent stage role, The
Yes,
Hiding
thank
Place.
you. It was a fabulous play based on a book by Corey Ten Boom called The Hiding Place. And a wonderful writer here in the Nashville area, A.S. Peterson, adapted it into an extraordinary play directed by Matt Logan. And we had a very successful 2.5 month run last summer here in Nashville. And the last week we filmed it. So we have made a movie of a stage play, and it's obvious. You can see microphones and our heads and stuff like that from time to time. But the play is now available to be seen, and it is going to be seen in movie theaters throughout the world.
Wow.
August 3rd and 5th. I think it's the 3rd in Los Angeles. Maybe it's both those dates. And then worldwide later in the month on the 16th, August 16th. They've done this with things like operas, where you buy tickets and there's only a few screenings. But it's a wonderful way to see things that you might not ordinarily see. I'm really proud of this, not only of my work, but of the entire production. It's very moving, but more importantly, it's inspiring and lets one see once again what the human spirit can do.
What's it about, John? What's it
Well,
about?
The Ten Booms lived in the Netherlands, and the father, Casper, who I played, was a clockmaker. And they had what they call a baillet, a little shop in the house. And it's right at the time that Nazi Germany was rising to its fullest and invaded Holland. And ultimately what happens is they hid Jews. They were not Jewish. They hid Jews in their walls of their home. It was very cleverly built out as a hiding place, and they were behind it. And they saved several hundred Jews during the course of the war until they were discovered. And none of them made it out of the camps except Corey, who devoted her life to preaching the gospel of forgiveness, love, and repentance. And that's what this play is about. It's very, very moving.
And so this is a true story. It's based on a
true story.
Wow.
And anybody who hasn't read, that doesn't have a chance to go to the movie, I highly recommend the book, which you can still get. It's called The Hiding Place, and it's by Corey, Corrie, 10, Ten, Boom, Boom.
Wow. Great stuff. I know it got remarkable write-ups. I mean, just like transcendental write-ups.
Yeah.
And congratulations on that.
Thank
So I want to ask you about your son, because your son did something. I mean, I'm sure he's done a bunch of stuff, but I'll just give you like one of the marquee things. Your son discovered Bruno Mars. Okay? That is, if you stopped right there, you could plant the flag. You know what I mean? But he has gone on to nurture a bunch of huge careers, produce, and he's co-written on a bunch of, Flo Rida stuff. And, I think, again, he's the real music guy. I kind of am a retail music consumer, just on the radio and et cetera. But your son, Aaron Bay Shuck, is an amazing story because he started as just an A&R guy. I remember when he was just a kid, like trying to discover a hip hop band or something.
That's right. Well, when he was in college, I kept asking him, "Do you know what you might like to do?" And finally, he said, "Well, the only thing I really like is music." And I said, "Well, let's begin there." And so he got apprenticeships and stuff. And then when he got out of college, he got some more apprenticeships at various places. And ultimately, he ended up, through a series of events and some luck on his side, with Lord willing, to be president and CEO of Warner Music. So it's quite an accomplishment. It doesn't happen. There he is.
There he is, the handsome devil. He's a new dad.
Thanks. Yeah. And hi, Aaron. So it's wonderful. But his best achievement has been presenting us with a grandson, Leo, who will be a year next month.
Yeah, there you go. That's the real thing. Yeah. Adorable kid. I mean, I know that it's tough to miss adorability as a child, but that kid is really, there's the Hiding Place.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you,
the people who are interested in tickets, they can go to the Hiding Place Films, all lowercase.com, and that'll let you know what theater is in your town and the date and the price.
That's terrific.
One-stop shopping.
There you go. So, look, I'd love to visit with you again. This has been a fun visit. Believe it or not, we could ask you about any number of things. I tried to skip around and get into a couple of conversations about stuff, but I adore talking to you, and so I could do it. I could do it every day. It's a really great pleasure. So, much love to your family, to your apparently expanding family, one grandchild at a time. And Kim, any questions before I excuse the witness? You're muted, but I imagine you.
I was going to say my husband's going to be really excited when I tell him I met a Klingon.
It's amazing how those guys get into people's hearts, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true.
God,
I was the only Klingon that never had to talk Klingonese. Thank God.
Yeah, that's a whole other. And the people who actually speak Klingon would have busted you if you just tried to fake it. So you really
I know.
are lucky.
They're avid. They know it. They've learned the whole little book.
It's just wild. All right, John, lots of love. Love to your wife, Harrison, who herself is a remarkable artist.
And as we say here in the South, y'all come back real soon now.
Bye, John Chuck.
Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What could this be? Let's look. I'm so excited. It's the Mark Thompson Show.
Is CinemaScope.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great, baby.
Let me kick down the door and talk to my cheap sons and daughters.
No context will suffice to explain the hurt and anguish caused by my words. I apologize to all who have been hurt.
I stand corrected. I misspoke. My words upset so many people.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
God bless America. The end.
There's never been anything like this. Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
It's fantastic.
That's not fake. That's real.
The science is ridiculous.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
There is no defense for my conduct. It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Don't ever use that word.
You get nothing.
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
Seriously, what the
that I wanted to make, though, Albert, I got a message while we were speaking with John Shuck from Wendy, and she feels like I confused the San Francisco Art Institute with the Academy of Art Institute. They're two different things, so if I got those confused, my bad. I'm sorry. They are two different institutions, so noted, and thank you to Wendy for that. Something I was also looking at today that I'm sorry. My bad. I'm sorry. Another story I was looking at today, though, was former President Trump doubling down on the E. Jean Carroll case. I hadn't mentioned it yet, so I wanted to. Of course, former President Trump found liable in this civil case, and he was supposed to pay her $5 million. Then he went on television after the verdict against him and started spouting off more about her. So she went back to court and asked for $10 million in this defamation case. Well, last night, Donald Trump sued E. Jean Carroll for defamation. It's a counterclaim. Trump alleges Carroll defamed him when she appeared on CNN the morning after the jury awarded her $5 million in damages. She was asked about the verdict finding Trump sexually abused her, but didn't rape her, as she alleged. And Carroll said, "Oh, yes, he did," standing by her assertion that Trump raped her. And so now Donald Trump is suing E. Jean Carroll for defamation. And back and forth we go. If a jury finds you guilty of sexually abusing someone and defaming her, I think that your countersuing really just keeps it in the news. That doesn't make sense to me to do that, but okay. So now we've got this case with Trump countersuing. I mean, maybe you get mad enough about something, you countersue, it shows that you take offense. But I think if they found that you sexually abused her, rape isn't too far down the road. And so I don't know if I would be wanting to call people's attention to it, but it's a counterclaim in this multi-year legal battle between Trump and E. Jean Carroll. She filed her suit in 2019. And so now here we go again with that. Yeah. Anyway, something I wanted to mention, because we didn't talk about that earlier, this whole E. Jean Carroll thing. Let's do a little bit of That's Rich, Albert. What do you think?
I like it. We could talk about that Barbie house. I did add a couple stories in there.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I love it. Let's get right to it. Do we have the open?
Yes, we do.
Who are they?
The top 1/10 of 1%.
What are they like?
These people are so posh and snobby, they're snotty.
That's Rich on the Mark Thompson Show.
That I want to bring up is this art, and I'm trying to bring the picture up so you guys can see. This piece of art is valued at over $108 million, called Lady with a Fan by Klimt. It becomes the most expensive painting ever sold in Europe, and it is beautiful. So let me get a picture up for.
I got it.
Oh, you got it? Okay. This is the piece. $108 million. It's really pretty. This is a 1918 painting appearing on the market for the first time in 30 years. The place was packed at the auction. And yeah, It was found on the easel in
What?
his studio at the time of his death. 108 million. The previous auction record was 104.3 million. It was a 10-minute bidding battle between 4 bidders at Sotheby's London. Gustav Klimt's final masterpiece, Lady with a Fan, sets a new record for Klimt and becomes the most valuable work of art ever sold at auction in Europe. So, I mean, you got to have a lot of money for that one, right? But I guess if you had 108 million floating around, this might not be a bad investment. I don't know how you usually leave vacation, Albert, but I mean, sometimes I just walk away, bid a farewell. That's not how Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez do it. They were in Sardinia and they were vacationing, they were having some fun. Apparently, they left the Italian island Monday after they had spent several days on the beach and hanging out. And they, I guess, hopped into a speedboat. It's being called a James Bond style speedboat. And they put on their sunglasses and they roared away. Apparently, it's being touted as a very fancy way to leave your vacation. The headline is "See you later, Sardinia." Yeah, and on the boat they go off to their next place. Yeah, it's a little different than taking a taxi to the airport. This is how
Yeah,
the
it must
rich
be
live.
nice. I think it went from they went from a helicopter to the boat. So
A
they just,
helicopter to the speedboat, and that's not just any speedboat. I mean, that's fancy. That is, I will say, that is fancy.
It's only nice, like Mark used to tell me, it's only nice if you like money, Kim. So if you don't like money, this isn't for you.
No, yeah, hate money, bad money,
Yeah, if
bad.
money is your thing, yeah, this is great.
I saw this story though, Albert, about millionaires preferring to have 4 or more children. And I guess it makes sense. If you have more money, you have more money to spend on kids and to leave money to kids and whatever. It's a millionaire match survey that shows millionaires prefer having 4 or more children. So that's just the way they do it, I guess. I don't know. Millionaire Match is a dating website designed for millionaires. It's only for people whose salary is over 300,000 a year. So if you don't make the cut, you can't be on the website. But they say the majority of their certified millionaires on the platform, there's a certification for that, have preferences for having multiple children. The survey looked at the preferences of 965 male millionaires on Millionaire Match, and 42% of them expressed the desire to have 2 children, 27% hope for 3 children, 18% said they wanted to have 4 to 5 children, and 13% expressed the desire for more than 5 children. So that's what they're looking for.
What?
Large families, they say, in the United States have become a symbol of social status. The proportion of 3 and 4 child families among the super rich, that's the top 1 to 1.5% of wealthy Americans, significantly increasing. And since the millionaires have the wealth to support the children's education and the lifestyle and healthcare and everything else, okay, go do it.
Yeah, we'll see. It makes a better movie, Kim, when they're fighting over, mom and dad pass away, and they're all trying to fight for the company for all the wealth. So,
did you see the story that Emily Blunt is renting out her house?
I think it's a crazy. There's a crazy price tag to that too.
Yeah, she moved to New York, but she and John Krasinski, her husband, owned this home for a couple years before they moved to New York. It's really pretty. See if you can put some pictures up of it. You can rent this place. See, look at that. You can rent this place. It's the former Los Angeles home of Emily Blunt and John Krasinski. It will only set you back $30,000 a month. No problem.
What?
It's a 5-bedroom, mid-century modern house in the Hollywood Hills. They lived there from 2014 to 2016 before they checked out of Southern California, bound for New York. They sold the home to an entertainment agency executive for $3.5 million. That's all. It's a single-story brick house. It was built in 1965. It's had some updates and some remodels, but it's floor-to-ceiling windows. It's lots of space. It's really pretty. The home came up for rent last week, though it has been available for sale now at about $6 million since March. But you can rent it for $30,000 a month. I mean, if you had $30,000 a month, that's not a bad place to live if that's your budget.
I'm sure it might be worth the price tag to be rubbing your elbows with everyone else in that neighborhood. So,
let's look at the Barbie. Can we look at the Barbie house? Yeah, I don't have the story in here, but this is the Barbie house. This is pretty big. This is the one that you can win 2 nights to stay in. I mean, they emptied out the pink paint to paint this thing Barbie pink, floor to ceiling. And now they are doing this contest where you can enter to win 2 nights. Is it 2 nights? Yeah, 2 one-night stays that they're giving away. 2 one-night stays inside the Barbie dream house, celebrating the release of the Barbie movie. The house is in Malibu. It's hot pink from floor to ceiling, and Airbnb is giving guests the chance to stay in this real-life Malibu Barbie dream house. So you could stay there overnight, hang out, look at the pool. It says Ken. That's kind of nice. You know,
this is a house where you got to get the sunglasses on the whole time. This is way too bright. If the sun is if there's any sunlight that's reflecting on any of this property, it's gonna be killing your eyeballs. So
I wonder if they keep it this way as kind of a tourist attraction, or if they repaint it and hope people don't flock to it after this movie. You know, if this movie achieves some type of cult status, kind of like the Goonies house where everyone was always coming to it and everything. But this one, I don't know. I think you have to repaint it. It's kind of an eyesore.
Especially it's in the where is this again? Is it Beverly
Malibu.
Hills or
It's in Malibu.
Oh yeah, even worse. So you get all those helicopter overhead shots of Malibu, and then there's a bright pink house. So I'm sure the people around that area, who knows, maybe it becomes something really popular. So
it's possible. It's possible. What's this? It's Mark Thompson. I think Mark wants to pop back in, say a little goodbye to everybody.
Let's hit this close first, and then we'll go. Mark Thompson will tell us goodbye.
Yeah, so let's do it. We have to go.
More on how the other half lives.
These people aren't just rich; they're crazy rich.
Next time on the Mark Thompson Show.
Kim, the magic.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
We do, and
I think I'm the most honest.
Kim, the magic.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
We do, and
I think I'm the most honest human being.
Kim, the magic.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
We do, and
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps that God ever created.
Kill you just to run a little stinger before I come on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, like that. It's a more civilized way to proceed. Thank you.
What is even happening?
I don't know. Whoever's controlling all of this.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
There is that. I don't know. I've liked it, though. I got to be honest.
It was great. I loved it.
I loved it. I really did. I loved it. We've had.
No.
What is that, Kim? I like Rothmann, right?
Yeah, that was great.
Rothmann was great.
Yeah.
Rothmann's always great.
I'm looking for some Why Are You Yelling Red right about now.
Yeah, I need some Why Are You Yelling Red.
Why are you yelling?
Yeah. All right. Tomorrow, it gets magical. David Katz joins the legal mind of David Katz. Belinda with It's the Planet Stupid. Much to do.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Kim.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Love you most of all. Bye.